All right, we are live with Korey from Microsoft.
Hello, hello.
And hey, man, what's your? We just came out of a workshop, internal workshop with the companies. Um, what's your feeling after the session? Like, you feel you got the chance to say the most important parts, or?
Yeah, definitely. I always love when people then come and present what they're working on and then ask me if like AI can solve that. I had a dream once that I was gonna make this site called like can AI do that or something? And it would be like people would just submit or like write their description of their startup and then I would just like record myself for 30 seconds and then
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'll explain how I build it, we'll build it kind of thing. Because that gets me super excited when people are looking at their problems or their products and like, oh, this could be automated or this could use AI in some type of way. So I really love that stuff. So getting that kind of questions after, I feel like, yeah, I think I've got the message across at least. Get people thinking and talking.
Yeah, definitely. When we started discussing this session, I wasn't really sure because it's AI for non-AI startups, right? And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't sure, like, do does the company understand what it means and how you can leverage it? Even though you're not like core AI company, it's still a huge opportunity. And also, that being said, there's so many sort of iterations and pivots that companies does over the years in order to figure out, like, how do we solve the most important problem and how do
Yeah.
we make money out of that. So I think it's really intriguing and really good that you communicate, like, okay, this is the toolkit, this is how you should think about it, those are the opportunities. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun. Definitely a good talk. I appreciate you having me in.
Our pleasure. I was thinking, so for those who are tuning in now on the Fireside chat, the structure of those sessions is basically to cherry pick some of the topics that came out of the workshop, but share it openly, because sometimes it's really valuable for non-members as well. And we believe that, like, this is not secrets that should be kept within our community. It should be shared openly.
Makes sense.
So, and this is basically the opportunity for that, but in a more casual setting, I would say.
Yeah, the
Uh,
jazz music is playing in the background, so this is
yeah, that's
casual
like,
as you can get.
visualize us sitting next to a fireplace
Yeah, yeah.
with a drink or whiskey
The
or
background
whatever.
definitely needs some work. I need a fireplace in the background. This brick wall, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's doing it for me, but yeah.
Yeah. That's actually a good idea. We should up our game there for
Yeah.
sure.
I had one
Um,
suggestion. One suggestion.
yeah, for sure. Probably Dolly can help me generate a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
background. Yeah. So, who is Korey, and like, could you just give us a brief introduction of yourself and what you're doing within AI and machine learning, and give us some context of why it makes sense to talk to you about AI.
Yeah. So I'm working at Microsoft as a cloud advocate. My main focus is working with AI and specifically on our Microsoft Reactor program. So Microsoft Reactor is not a space where we sell Azure products or we sell some Microsoft things or we show cool products to customers, but we actually instead speak to the community and help educate the community on different technologies, whether that is Microsoft related or not. So when I talk about AI, it's not again specifically on here's the new Microsoft AI Azure thing that you could subscribe to, but like how a startup could work with AI, how do you build with AI, whether you are a developer, a startup, or a student, which is really kind of our core audience. And I really like that. Again, this is kind of a passion for me, is just to increase the world of AI literacy, and specifically also whether it's Sweden or it's Europe or it's just the world as a whole. Because I do think what I've found is super fascinating and to the point when you do educate people just even a little bit on what AI is possible, they come as kind of area experts, and then they bring that knowledge, and it's just kind of marrying that to what AI can solve, and that just brings a lot more different products, more diverse use cases, which is just super cool to me, I think.
Sweet. And let's dive in directly. I just want to get your quick context and definition of AI ML and why does it matter?
Yeah. So the definition, that's a tricky one, as it shouldn't be, but it is. But I mean, I like I kind of shared in the workshop. It really is how can you get the processes and features that you already have or things that you're doing in a way that's completely automated and using those predictions and those inputs uh, to improve a process or make your life or your customer's life more efficient. So it's I don't hate the word of like AI superpowers, because if you know how this technology actually works, it's nothing like it's magical in the way of the results, but there is hard things going on behind the scenes, and I think it's more valuable to invest in understanding how some of those work than just like magic goodbye, which I see a lot of different people and advertisements kind of talking about. But why should you care? It's the new internet, if you will. Like don't rarely people don't know the in depths of how the internet works. Like I'm not exactly sure how I'm communicating to you on through this lovely little StreamYard system, but I use it day to day. And one of the things I think is unique about AI is while you use the internet, right? I logged on to the StreamYard and I logged on in my computer. AI actually, in some cases, uses you, sounds super scary. But what I mean by that is, you could be a data point in someone's AI model that you don't even know about. I mean, there's some legislation coming down that will help improve visibility that AI is being used in certain cases. But there is different ways, whether you're communicating with a chatbot, which normally are is painstakingly obvious you're working with a chatbot, but in other cases where they're making predictions on whether you get a loan or whether you get into a certain school or even a job interview, AI could still be being used by that. And I think just a general education or knowing how all those sorts of things works is beneficial from just an individual level. And I guess if we're talking specifically about startups, if you're not using AI, your competition is, and you will get outclassed and outpaced immediately when your competition is using an AI model, because they will be far more efficient and be able to deliver results cheaper and more in a bigger scale than you can.
Yeah, really good summary. And I think we covered a little bit about the ethical challenges also with AI, and you mentioned it too. It's like also like when legislation is catching up, there will be more demands on what it means to use AI in your company. Just like new regulations forced everyone to have like a cookie policy on your website.
Who's reading those things, right?
Yeah, AI will strike down on everyone. Yeah. Reject all. Where's the reject all button?
I'm always afraid though, because like, is reject all like, do I get kicked off from the site? Like, I almost never click reject all, which I should, because I really hate being tracked. But
if reject all, if reject all is 2 clicks away, I'm doing it. Otherwise, I'm just like, yeah, you got me.
Yeah,
like, leave me alone.
Yeah, I don't know the process, but yeah, I think that's going to be what I think most people imagine this will be looking like, is some similar type of experience. But like I said, I mean, it's kind of like a user agreements on software. It's like the cookies, like how many people are reading that, and maybe depending on if you're afraid of AI or you're not afraid of AI, you might just click off because you don't want to accept anything like that. Who knows?
Yeah, that's a good point. So if you want to keep up, there are obviously a bunch of challenges to implement and start leveraging AI in your company. Do you want to? You had a good summary slide on your session. Do you want to just summarize what are the most common challenges for startups when it comes to start leveraging the powers of AI?
Yeah. So I kind of broke it down into skills, data, and cost. So when I talk to startups a lot, from a skills perspective, it really depends obviously on the startup, but maybe there may be someone that's technical that's handling all the product development, and there's maybe someone that's doing marketing or sales, and maybe someone doing operations. Let's say the classic three founder startup perspective, but normally obviously a small team by definition as a startup. And most of the time, I would say most of them aren't, especially when they're talking to me or to anyone that's like, how do I get started with AI? You're probably not then a data scientist or machine learning engineer or someone that's built or deployed an AI model before. So when we're talking about skills, it's kind of addressing that gap of, I have never worked with AI. I never know what a good AI model is. Maybe you've seen things on Twitter or you've seen like cool demos, but how those actually work and how you get started building a product or a feature with AI is completely lost to you. So then again, the project gets pushed back. We'll wait until we have got funding and we find the right data scientist. But maybe that day never comes because you haven't used AI and your competition has, and again, you're getting outpaced and outclassed. Or data scientists and machine learning engineers, like even the biggest tech giants like Microsoft, struggle to find these people and pay them top dollar to stay where they are. So again, waiting until the moment to find someone that has the skills is probably not sustainable for most companies, or not something that I at least would recommend. So it's how then you get those skills, understanding AI use cases, which I talked about in the workshop. And then on the data side, it's I have a lot of conversations with startups where, okay, we would like to use AI in the future. So this tells us like how can we format the data. So once we get more data, then we can start working with AI. And again, you might not ever reach that point in your startup life, or you still will never know when is enough data, or when you say, okay, we made this goal and now we've gotten to that point to start working. So also with data, there's data everywhere. There's freely available data that could be useful for you. There's even which I didn't talk about in the workshop, but synthetic data. Ability to make fake data but still relevant to your AI problem, and even especially on images and things like that.
How does
3D.
that work?
Yeah, so 3D images. So there's a startup, actually I'm losing the name of this, but they can take like an image of a turtle, 3D generate realistic turtles, and then the AI model can then look at a real image of a turtle and say that's a turtle. So you don't need to have a million pictures of turtles. I mean, there probably is if you Google, and it will take too long. But just as
Yeah.
an example of that, where you could use synthetic or fake data to basically train the AI model, and then it actually can still make valid predictions in the real world. So that's another alternative. And then I guess on the cost side, obviously startups, funding is probably, and staying alive is the number one thing for a startup to do. So oftentimes an AI project is looked at as very expensive and goes down quickly on the priority level of things to do with your limited funds. But the costs, as I mentioned in the workshop, are going down as far as as well as compute, it gets more efficient. And then there's a tons of sort of no code tools that are almost operating as SaaS-based models where you pay like monthly, or a little bit different than like you pay for compute time and all of that, which can get kind of crazy depending on the model you use. So yeah, those are also things I recommend for startups to keep costs down and build small, like I had mentioned in the workshop.
Yeah. So I'm like that's definitely a keyword I sort of picked up from your talk about how to get started. Skills, data, costs, like those are often missed, all of them, or money instead of cost. Like it's really challenging. If you're using a huge amount of data and you need to train your data or your models on huge amounts of data, like how often is it on query based pricing, and are there like a lot of one-off fees or solutions where it's not based on the volume of things?
Yeah, I mean most pricing, I think I like the basic consumer level, if you will, like not enterprise, would probably have a cost around compute, like training. of the data model, and there's a whole world of like how often you should train a model and to get better results and things like that. But as a general structure, let's say there's a monthly cost or something around training a model, and then depending again on the product we're talking about, there could be you get a basket of predictions. So every time you send a model, input to the model, and it gives a prediction, there might be you get 100 or 1,000 predictions a month or something, and there may be cost associated to when you reach that limit and you go over that limit. But again, for one of the things I showed in the workshop was that there's like I think over 1,000 AI or ML like tooling companies out there now, because models have become far more efficient than they originally were, and you can build a lot of UI and better user experience on top of those tools, and make a legitimate business and a company out of that. So those like tools normally can operate on some SaaS base where you're getting that kind of limits of training time and predictions. So it's just also again finding where what kind of cost structure works for you. And if you're starting small, even some of them offer free tiers where you could probably sneak in a good training and a good proof of concept where you could also again get started on it and then work your way up.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really, really good. And I think I've seen a lot of AI representatives talk about how AI needs to move from research stage and the labs to application stages where it's actually getting embedded into society and actually solving real problems in society, like image rendering and all that. Like when it's with GPT-3 and Dolly and all the things, like it's amazing because it's so visual for us, such a pedagogic way of communicating how awesome this new technology is. But it's not necessarily like applied in and everyday services that we'll use as citizens or companies, or like what's your experience? Like how fast do we go from like research to applied AI in actual solutions? Like, is there like certain industries where it's faster?
I mean, I think to my other point around literacy, I think really getting subject matter experts involved is the kind of core of bridging that gap from research and to application. So people that working in different spaces can apply those things, those models that again are really cool to look at as like a quick 30-second demo, which I showed on the workshop. But then actually putting those into play, it's a different story. I mean, I've seen a lot of different use cases, especially around the creative side. Again, since as you mentioned, it's a very visual thing, and also visual things around, film and photography and things like that go hand in hand. I haven't seen too many things yet commercialized around that, built like on an actual product. There is a company called Runway ML doing some video editing stuff with the Stable Diffusion, which is a very DALL-E 2-esque model, where you can again make scenes through typing, and then you can have a video scene and cutting down costs of like special effects. So these are all very close within our grasp of doing, but then it's just now how scaling it and getting it into people's hands that have already that mindset or creativity, and then being able to employ it, and then also then making it accessible for people who don't have all of that creativity, which I think is the biggest benefit of these types of things, especially on the visual side. People like, I mean, I don't know anything about filmmaking, but I would love to have a car explode like in my movie or something. I don't know. So if I just all I have to do is type car explosion in urban city, and I have that scene, that's quite huge. So I think that stuff is there. How close we are to it, I think it's still like maybe 3 or 5 years out before we see more and more startups just built solely off of one model. Like, I have a GPT-3 startup. We have a couple out there, namely like Copy AI, which is a bigger one that has some success where they use GPT-3 to generate website copy and email copy and things like that. Where if you launch a business, that's probably one of the most annoying things if you don't like writing. It's like, okay, I have a website now. Like, what do I put on the website? oh, I had to put all this text and ways to make people interested in my product and stuff like that. So they have built on top of GPT-3 and other models as well. I think they employ now a startup, full fledged company generating.
Nice. I just thought about when you talked about like there's a bunch of open source communities building great things, and GPT-3 is from OpenAI. Where like having an open source community behind it, developing great solutions on top of it. When do you draw the line, or where should you draw the line from what you can actually charge for, right? Because this is like using a lot of the available technologies that is there for you to build new solutions.
Yeah.
But when you're doing open source and sharing it on GitHub and doing new things and very transparent about your code, but all of a sudden you start charging customers or users, right? What, like from a licensing point of view, maybe this is like more a question for IP rights lawyers, but
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not a lawyer here, but
yeah, but like in terms of best practices here, when you're taking open source technology and building something for commercial purposes, especially in AI, like what is there any like you obviously throw up a terms of services thing on your website, but
yeah.
like how does the community benefit from your commercial moves?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, even not even just in the world of AI, but software in general. Like I'm sure what we're using right now is running on a lot of open source technologies.
Yeah, which
Uh,
we're paying for, right?
yeah, 1,000% sure of that. So I don't know if I have an exact answer, even in that scope. I mean, some like there's a lot of, I guess where for at least you paying for the model comes into place is around either it's a proprietary model like GPT-3 or DALI 2, where you don't have complete open access to the model itself. But there is a huge movement around services and tools like Hugging Face, where you do in fact have that, but then the tooling and that streamlined services to make your job easier as a developer or someone who's building the product as what you're paying for. So similarly to any sort of maybe cloud-based type service, where you kind of then make a product and charge for it. I guess it's really up to you and your product of where you have costs associated. Like you probably are going to be using, you're probably not self-hosting a model and deploying it to your self-hosted cloud. So whenever you get costs that you need to cover, I would say you could charge for it pretty openly. Obviously, there's different licenses and software licenses and things like that. So you can just make sure that that all complies. But most of the models are publicly available in some type of way, whether in research and the model's architecture, or using like a Hugging Face, and you could easily access them.
Yep, makes sense. You mentioned also no code solutions, like as you talked about. The reason why we're even having this conversation about how AI can leverage, like how startups can leverage AI, is because those are it's probably not a team of data scientists or analytics wizards, right? So could you just talk a little bit about like the tools available there to get started, even if you don't know how to code yourself or have a data science background?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with kind of addressing the no-code world, because a lot of people, especially if you're a technical or a developer background, may, as I had in the past, dismiss no code as being maybe toyish, right? It's not the real thing. It's not how you would actually do this, and there might be limitations on some certain flexibilities. But as mentioned earlier, most of these no code tools are just UI experiences on top of actual code, which sounds weird to say because that's basically everything. It's just UI experiences top of actual code. But specifically around working with AI, if you're using TensorFlow or PyTorch as a developer, most of these things are also using that in a very almost same fashion, but giving maybe a bit more restrictions on certain things, which restrictions is not necessarily to say that you aren't again using the technology to its full capability, but there might be, especially when we're talking about model training and tuning, different tweaks on hyperparameters that aren't useful for actual model efficiency, and you as a user or someone building don't need to have access to. Most if a good no code tool is available, it still has some of those accessible. But even some people don't want that. They just want to train a model or send some data and give me the best model that's possible. And even some developers don't want that either. So there's different auto ML solutions out there where you can do training in the code, but then you just get the API to call. So I guess that's, addressing the world of no code, it's still a viable solution. In terms of like actual specific products out there, I mean, since I am working for Microsoft, I'll talk about Lobe AI. That's a kind of image-based classification. I think it's only focusing on images. I haven't used it personally, to be honest. But it also focuses around image classification.
LOBE.
LOBE.ai. But yeah, like I mentioned, also Runway ML. There's C3, that's just kind of more towards enterprises. But yeah, if you just search no code AI and just kind of go down the list, and find ones that, some of them try to address every single type of AI problem, and some work on very specific ones. I would probably on like looking at the specific ones first if you know what type of AI problem that you want to solve, because they maybe are better optimized than for a tool that maybe is trying to do everything.
Yep. Yeah. And it also applies to startups in general, right? Like when you get started, don't spend too much writing code that will not send you any information about if you're doing something that matters for someone, right?
Yeah.
So no code is in many cases really, or low code it's very valuable if you're MVPing whatever you're building, whether it's AI or other software solutions.
For sure.
So yeah, I was going to mention it's in the ticker down below. If you have any questions to Korey, you can just write on Facebook or LinkedIn. We'll bring that question up. So then it's the end of the Fireside chat, but still, like if anyone has any question, this is a good opportunity to jump in. I can't leave without shortly talking about AI ethics, right?
It always comes at the end, AI.
Yeah. It's
not about AI ethics. It comes at the end of it. It's a shame, but yes, let's do it.
Yeah. It's definitely, as people are using AI and machine learning to build new solutions, the first thing people are trying to do is solve problems and make something amazing that makes a difference, solves problems. So and ideally also charge for it. So it's like building new businesses, like any other technologies, right? But with AI, it comes with some responsibilities. Do you want to, like, for example, GPT-3, you mentioned it's built upon learning from conversations on Reddit, right? And as I mentioned on the workshop, like, at least for me, this is a personal subjective opinion. It's like Reddit is one of the most racist places you could be in terms of like people are mostly kids, sometimes maybe even bots,
Sure.
are just like writing stupid stuff, right?
Yeah.
AI doesn't, like, the model might not know what is the real and what is not, or what is subjective or objective and reality or facts even. Could you just talk about that for a minute in terms of like what are the responsibilities there when it comes to AI?
Yeah, I mean, one of the bigger things if we talk about GPT-3 specifically is around how the model gets used at the end result. So as a community in AI, it's a big focus on that of either providing user agreements or some even general contracts, so that you won't use these models for evil, however you sort of define that, whether it's military or violence or racism or things like this. So I think there's going to be more focus on that, specifically when more people get access to these
You,
models.
you need to like say that, okay, you say, here's nuclear technology. Please don't use it to harm people. And
Right.
they're like, yeah, I'll sign on that.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately enough, at least some of these things we have some controls on, like the reason why GPT-3 is proprietary, or why you still use GPT-3, the OpenAI service, is because then they still have some control on that sorts of things. So you have the nuclear code, but we can always like take that paper away from you. Uh,
Yeah.
we're getting more now into, like I said in the workshop, like you can train some of these models on your local machine, especially if you have a GPU available. Again, if you want to like deploy these in actual production environments, you still probably need to use some external service. So you hope at least that they have some checks. So it's still quite early on how we define those things, and the hope is, again, we confine them into use cases that are, a general good for society. But I mean, much like the internet, right? I mean, there's like you said, Reddit, right? I mean, it's like it's going to be really hard to bottle that up. But the difference, I mean, if we look at before the internet and we look at after the internet, the amount of scale that we could achieve is infinite, right? But then now with AI, the amount of scale from the internet area is even more infinitely. So it's like the damage that someone can have done to themselves, to others with AI is, uh, you could scale that pretty quickly, and even the impact be more impactful than as like, you know I'll bring you the example of like criminal justice, where a lot of people are getting arrested, or even going to jail based on AI predictions of security cameras or activity. And while maybe I can like go on someone's forum and say, oh, this person is a bad person and they should get arrested, if an AI model can confirm that, that's even that the level of impact is even greater.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it shouldn't. We should talk about it more than a minute. But it's something that, yeah, I think everyone involved, whether you are a lawyer from a legal perspective, a practitioner, or a technical person, or just a everyday common citizen, should participate in the conversation with.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good point. Let's wrap it up. I'm gonna remove that banner because that's your Twitter handle, right?
Yeah, it is. I think if that's what you mean.
Yep. So someone, if someone want to reach out to Korey, you can just ping you on Twitter.
Yep.
Do you want to just while we wrap up, like key things for startups to think about as they are approaching use case of AI?
I mean, my main message, I hope I got through the workshop and in this Fireside chat, is to start now. Like, there's no better day to do that. And again, if there was, you might not actually reach that day, unfortunately. Or like, I mean, most startups fail. That's the hard fact. So giving yourself the best chance to do that now is the best chance of also survival in a world, again, where products and features will be more and more AI powered and provide whoever is employing those things more rewards, essentially. So start now. Big thing, and start small. Don't really focus on completely launching a full product suite of AI powered products. But look at specific use cases, different customer segments that you might be working with, or different processes that are just annoying or costing too much for you as a startup, either with time or money, or getting clogging up with skills. Like, you can't hire an intern army to do everything. I've seen it tried before, but maybe an AI model, again, that needs to sort out emails or CVs or intake or something like that could be a great way for you to start just seeing the efficiencies that AI can get. So yeah, look for pain points, start small, and start now.
Awesome. And where should, like, is there like a portal or main page that you would like direct people to get started?
I will point them to our meetup group.
Yep,
I'm doing
do it.
talk about this all of the time in the world of AI and things like that. So if you search Microsoft Reactor Stockholm in Google, you will get our meetup page. And I have a series I've been going on called Your First AI Project, where I again explain all of the steps. I'm on actually series number 2 or lecture number 2 of that series. We're actually specifically talking about working with data. So that's coming up next week. So if you like this sort of stuff, feel free to join. It's a streaming event, so such as this, where you can casually watch from home. We won't have lovely jazz music playing in the background, but maybe I can sort that
Next
out.
time. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
that's the meetup page, right? And you can subscribe here, so you can probably get the notifications when you're doing new stuff. Right?
Yeah, we cover everything from AI and data. We're actually next month kind of also focusing on Rust software development, so taking a little bit of a turn, but it's a place to learn. It's a place where people come to get skills. So if you're into any of that, come join us.
It's awesome. Korey, thank you so much for taking the time, and I hope those who tuned in really got something out of it. And stay tuned as well for more Fireside chats, and we'll be open for any incoming inquiries and tips for other topics that we should cover. All right.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Thanks so much. See you.
Bye.
Bye.